In 2021, two women worked in the same building in Manhattan. Same floor, same job title, roughly the same salary. One drove a leased BMW, wore designer shoes, took vacations that appeared on her Instagram every 3 months. Net worth, approximately $40,000. The other drove a 4-year-old Honda, wore unremarkable clothes, took no vacations anyone noticed. Net worth, $1.2 million. The woman with the BMW thought the woman with the Honda was struggling. She was wrong. What separates those two women is not income, not luck, not even discipline. It is one psychological principle that genuinely wealthy people understand. And almost everyone else has been taught the exact opposite of. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will never look at someone's car the same way again. Elena Vasquez had spent 15 years building what she thought wealth looked like. The apartment in a neighborhood that said something. The wardrobe that matched her title. The restaurants where the bill confirmed her position. The car that announced her arrival before she stepped out of it. She was not reckless. She was strategic. Every visible purchase was a considered signal to clients, to colleagues, to the industry she had spent a decade climbing. She had been told, explicitly, by mentors she respected, that looking successful was part of being successful. That how you showed up created the rooms you got invited into. She believed it, and she had built a life that expressed it precisely. But there was a calculation Elena had never made. Not the cost of the BMW. Not the apartment premium. Not the wardrobe budget or the restaurant spend. The calculation she had never made was simpler and more devastating than any of those. She was 35 years old. She had been earning a strong salary for 11 years. And she had approximately $60,000. Everything else had been expressed. She had been performing wealth for a decade. She had almost none. One Tuesday evening, after a dinner where she had paid for the entire table because it was the kind of thing she did, she sat in her BMW in the parking garage and did the math she had been avoiding, then called the only person she knew who might understand what she had just figured out. What he told her next, she had never heard from any of the mentors who told her to look the part. They met the following Saturday morning. A coffee shop, not the impressive kind. Plain wooden tables. Paper cups. The kind of place where no one was there to be seen. Arthur Blake was already at a corner table. Dark gray suit. Silver hair. A black coffee. Reading actual paper. Elena sat down, placed her designer bag on the table, then noticed she had done it, and moved it to the floor. Arthur looked up. Arthur said, "Tell me what you worked out." Elena said, "I've been performing wealth for 11 years, and I have almost nothing to show for it. In real terms." Arthur said, "What does performing wealth mean to you?" Elena said, "Spending money so that people can see that I have it, so that my position is visible, so that I get taken seriously in the right rooms." Arthur said, "And has it worked?" Elena said, "For those things, yes. I get into the rooms. I have the title, but the money that paid for all of it," Arthur said, "is gone." Elena said, "Is gone." Arthur picked up his paper cup. Arthur said, "Here is what I want you to understand. The people in those rooms, the genuinely wealthy ones, not the performers, are almost never the ones who look it. And the ones who look it almost never are. You have been competing in a competition you didn't know existed. And you have been winning it. The problem is, it is the wrong competition. And winning it has cost you everything that matters." Elena said, "I don't understand. Looking successful is part of being successful. That's what I was taught. And we have been conditioned, by advertising, by culture, by the behavior of people around us, to believe that purchased objects signal status. The car signals success. The address signals arrival. The wardrobe signals position. And because these signals work, because people genuinely do respond to them in ways that feel like progress, the behavior gets reinforced. You buy the car. Someone treats you differently. Your brain records. The car produces social reward. Buy the car again. What your brain cannot record, because it happens silently, over years, with no immediate signal, is the compounding that didn't happen, the investment that wasn't made, the freedom that didn't arrive. Write that down, because that invisible process is happening to most people reading this right now, and they cannot feel it. Arthur said, "Here is the specific thing that genuinely wealthy people understand, and I want you to hear this clearly. Wealth is not a visible state. Wealth is a structural one. A person with $1 million in compounding assets and a used Honda is wealthier, in every meaningful sense. than a person with $60,000 and a BMW. Not because the BMW is wrong, but because the BMW is the wealth. Visible, depreciating, status generating, and gone. Whereas the million in compounding assets is invisible, makes no noise, impresses no one at dinner, and grows while its owner sleeps. The genuinely wealthy have learned, usually through watching others perform their way to zero, that the most dangerous financial decision is the one that feels like a reward. Because rewards feel earned, and anything that feels earned feels justified, and anything justified rarely gets examined. Elena said, "So I've been rewarding myself into poverty." Arthur said, "You have been rewarding yourself into the performance of wealth," which produces a similar outcome over time. Because performance requires an audience, and maintaining an audience requires ongoing spend. And ongoing spend prevents accumulation. And without accumulation, the performance never ends. Because the performance is the financial strategy. The genuinely wealthy person has no performance to maintain. Their wealth is not visible. It requires no audience. It simply grows. In silence. In accounts nobody sees. In assets nobody knows about. In optionality that appears on no Instagram story. Arthur said, "I want to tell you something about the people in the rooms you have been buying access to. The ones with real wealth, and I have known many of them, almost universally drive unremarkable cars, live in houses that do not announce their net worth, wear clothes that communicate competence, not cost, and spend very little of their income on things that other people can see, not because they cannot afford more, because they understood, early, that every dollar spent on visibility is a dollar removed from the machine that produces freedom. They are not performing wealth. They are building it. Quietly. Invisibly. Without an audience. And the irony, the specific irony I want you to hold, is that the person you thought was struggling, the one with the Honda and the unremarkable clothes, is almost certainly freer than everyone performing around her. Elena did not sell the BMW that week, but she did something she had never done before. She made 2 lists. List 1, everything she spent money on that other people could see. List 2, everything she spent money on that other people could not. The first list was long. The second list was almost empty. She looked at the 2 lists for a long time. Then she asked herself a question Arthur had given her. For every visible purchase, who is the real audience? And what am I actually buying their opinion for? The BMW lease ended 4 months later. She did not renew it. She bought a 3-year-old Toyota with cash. The difference in monthly cost went directly, automatically, to an investment account. Labeled not savings. Labeled invisible wealth. She did not announce this. She did not post about it. There was no audience for it. That was the point. Over the following 18 months, Elena made 8 decisions like this. Each one slightly invisible. Each one removing something from the performance and redirecting it to the foundation. She did not become a different person. She still dressed well. She still ate at good restaurants. But the decision filter changed. Old filter. Does this signal what I want to signal? New filter. Is this building something or performing something? 3 years after that Saturday morning coffee, Elena Vasquez had $400,000 in what she called her invisible wealth account. She had told almost no one. It appeared on no social media. It impressed no colleague. And for the first time in her professional life, she had options that existed independently of her next paycheck. Arthur had said something at that plain coffee shop table. Something Elena wrote on a receipt because she had nothing else, and kept in her wallet for 3 years. The most expensive thing most people own is their image. Not their house, not their car, their image. Because the house and the car depreciate on a schedule, the image requires constant feeding, forever, and produces nothing that compounds. Here is what I want you to take from this story. Look at your spending, honestly, and divide it into 2 categories. Spending with an audience. Spending without one. Not all visible spending is wrong. Not all invisible spending is right. But ask yourself, for the visible spending, who is the audience? What are you buying their reaction for? And what would that money be doing, quietly, invisibly, without applause, if it were building instead of performing? Because the woman with the Honda is not struggling. She is building. In silence. In accounts no one sees. Toward a freedom that requires no audience to be real. Genuine wealth is almost never visible. Not because the wealthy hide it, but because they learned, usually from someone who had already made the mistake. that visibility and accumulation are almost always in competition. And they chose accumulation. Quietly. Every time. If this story made you look at your last visible purchase differently, that is exactly what this channel is built to do. Every week we go deeper into the psychology behind why some people build extraordinary wealth, and why equally talented, equally hardworking people spend their careers performing wealth instead of building it. Subscribe, because the next story might be the one that finally moves your money from the audience to the account.